Welcome back to Rediscovering Foods. Today, we're traveling back to the height of the Ottoman Empire to taste a recipe that fueled one of history's most formidable military forces, Warriors Halva, or, as it was known in Turkish, Gaziler Helvası.
This isn't just any dessert. This simple yet powerful confection helped sustain Ottoman soldiers as they conquered territories spanning 3 continents. From the 15th to the 19th centuries, this calorie-dense, portable food provided essential energy to Janissaries and other Ottoman troops during their extensive military campaigns.
What fascinates me about this recipe is how it represents the intersection of military necessity and culinary tradition. The Ottomans understood that an army marches on its stomach, and they developed sophisticated systems to feed their massive military machine. This halva is a delicious window into that world of military logistics and cultural heritage.
At its peak in the 16th and 17th centuries, the Ottoman Empire was a global superpower, stretching from the gates of Vienna to the Persian Gulf and from Crimea to North Africa. Maintaining control over such vast territories required not just military might, but incredible organizational skills, especially when it came to feeding their armies. The Ottoman military was revolutionary for its time. The empire maintained a standing professional army centuries before most European powers, with the elite Janissary Corps at its center. These troops needed to be well-fed to maintain their fighting edge, especially during long campaigns far from home. Ottoman military logistics were remarkably sophisticated. The empire established supply depots along major campaign routes and employed thousands of cooks, bakers, and food handlers. They even had specialized corps of bread bakers called the Habaz, who traveled with the army to ensure fresh bread was always available. But when troops were on the move or stationed at frontier outposts, they needed food that was portable, didn't spoil quickly, and provided substantial energy. This is where our Warriors Halva comes in, a simple yet ingenious solution to the challenge of feeding an army on the march. In 1834, the French Marshal Auguste de Marmont wrote, "The lot of Turkish soldiers is a very happy one. They are better fed than any other troops in Europe, having an abundance of provisions of excellent quality, and partaking of meat once and of soup twice a day." And that was nothing new. As far back as the 16th century, visitors were marveling at the quantity of food the army carried. The diplomat Gaziler de Busbecq, ambassador of the Holy Roman Emperor to Suleiman the Magnificent, described how the Sultan would set out on campaign with 40,000 camels and nearly as many mules, most loaded with cereals, especially rice. Busbecq noted that this was especially important when marching into Persian territory, where scorched earth tactics left no food behind. He explained, "It is the custom of the inhabitants, when their land is invaded, to lay waste and burn everything, and so force the enemy to retire through lack of food." But Suleiman couldn't let hunger defeat his army. First, the land was stripped bare, and then, and only then, the Sultan's vast stores of provisions were opened. Each janissary received a carefully weighed ration. There were 2 very different experiences within the Ottoman army. The Janissaries, the Sultan's household infantry and backbone of the army, dined remarkably well. They had herds of cattle and sheep set aside just for them, and each company owned a great copper cauldron engraved with its symbol, carried at the head of the unit. Their cooks prepared 2 hot meals a day, soups with meat and rice, or pilaf made with rice and the rich fat of fat-tailed sheep. Meals were communal, served into large copper bowls where 7 or 8 men sat and ate together. For the regular soldiers, however, life was harder.
They were expected to bring provisions, flour, butter, spices, and salt, and when supplies ran out, they had to purchase food from local merchants who followed the army. In fact, during major campaigns, vast moving markets accompanied the army. In the 17th century, one campaign had 1,000 victuallers and 2,000 tradesmen in tow. At the Siege of Candia in Crete, the Ottoman army's setup was essentially an entire city outside the walls of the besieged fortress, with coffee houses, bathhouses, and food stalls.
Another staple of the Ottoman soldiers' diet was bread and hardtack. Sir Henry Blount, an English traveler, wrote of their hospitality, recalling, "There was such plenty of good biscuit, rice, and mutton, as wheresoever I passed, they would often make me sit and eat with them very plentiful and well." Hardtack, or peksimet, was produced on a massive scale. In 1637, Sultan Murad IV demanded 80,000 cantors, around 50 tons of hardtack, to supply his troops for just 80 days. So essential was it that a dedicated official, the peksimet imini, or Minister of Hardtack, was responsible for its distribution. John Netton Radcliffe, a 19th century British surgeon with the army, noted that soldiers often preferred raw flour over hardtack. They could mix it with water to make a thin cake called ufka, baked quickly over embers.
Unlike many European armies, the Ottomans were remarkable for their sobriety. Wine was usually forbidden to Muslim soldiers, though Christian auxiliaries drank it freely. Officers sometimes indulged, but for the most part, drunkenness was rare, and that discipline was admired across Europe. They had other drinks instead. Sherbets flavored with lemon, peaches, violets, or apricots, and by the 17th century, a new beverage, coffee. Some Europeans, like Blount, disliked it at first, describing it as bitter and soot-colored, but it quickly became an inseparable part of Ottoman culture. Halva itself has ancient origins, with variations found across the Middle East, Central Asia, the Balkans, and North Africa. The word halva comes from the Arabic word hur, meaning sweet, and refers to a diverse family of confections. In Ottoman cuisine, halva evolved into numerous varieties, some made with flour or semolina, others with tahini or nut butters. It became not just a military ration, but an important part of Ottoman cultural and religious life. Halva held special significance during religious holidays and ceremonies. During Ramadan, it was often served at iftar meals to break the fast. It was distributed during funeral ceremonies as a form of charity and given to the poor during religious holidays. This connection between food and spirituality was deeply embedded in Ottoman culture.
The recipe I'm using today comes from the 19th century Ottoman cookbook Melceü't-Tabbahin, though similar versions had been feeding Ottoman soldiers since at least the 15th century. What's remarkable is how few ingredients it requires. Only 2 cups wheat flour, 1 cup butter, 1 cup honey, and a ½ cup milk. Each ingredient served a specific purpose. The flour provided the base and bulk, the butter added necessary fat for energy and helped preserve the halva, the honey or grape molasses delivered quick energy while also acting as a preservative, and the optional nuts and spices added nutritional value and flavor.
Let's make our warrior's halva. Traditionally, this would have been made in large copper cauldrons to feed entire units, but we'll scale it down. Melt the butter in a heavy-bottomed pan. Gradually add flour, stirring constantly. Toast until golden brown and nutty. It will take around 15 to 20 minutes. Slowly pour in honey or molasses mixed with milk, stirring constantly. Fold in optional nuts and spices. Transfer to a greased tray, press down, and allow to cool completely.
Halva also held deep significance in funeral traditions. Our warrior's halva has cooled and set. It has a firm yet slightly crumbly texture and a beautiful golden brown color.
The flavor is remarkable. Nutty from the flour, rich from the butter, and sweet from the honey. I can immediately understand why this was such an effective military food. Preparing halwa became part of mourning, a ritual that continues in Turkey today. The act of making halwa was meditative, giving the grieving a way to channel emotion. The stirring itself became a ritual. In Islamic tradition, providing food is charity, sadaqah. Funeral halwa became sadaqah jariyah, a continuing charity believed to benefit the deceased in the afterlife. This warrior's halva represents what I love about historical recipes. They solve practical problems while creating something delicious. The Ottoman military needed a portable, calorie-dense, shelf-stable food, and they created something that has endured as a beloved sweet. When we taste this halva today, we connect with the experiences of Ottoman soldiers who carried it into campaigns that shaped world history. Food wasn't just fuel, it was culture, memory, and community, even on the battlefield. Thank you for joining me on this culinary journey through time. Until next time, remember, every meal tells a story, sometimes the story of an empire.